First Lady Biden makes a surprise appearance in the Ukraine, meaning that literally everybody in the government who cares about the Ukraine, except for the current sitting president of the United States, has been there. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that and what that means. In the midst of a planned protest of going to churches on Mother's Day to celebrate pro-choice, a pro-life center in Madison, Wisconsin gets Molotoved, and there are a lot of signatures laying around that show that this is most likely going to be a pro-choice protest. That'll show the extremists what a peaceful protest looks like, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. Elon Musk plans to fire 1,000 Twitter staff and quintuple revenue by quite a bit as they go into this, and as he is planning on being the CEO as they start off with. And Karine Jean-Pierre sparks conflict of interest because she's dating somebody over at CNN. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. So apparently 2,000 Mules came out over this weekend, and I'm really not sure I haven't seen it, obviously, because it's a movie, which means that I've never seen it. I did not watch that. I have had concerns about the delivery of... Oh, by the way, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and we've got a ton of stuff to get over. It's a Monday on Contemporary. There are 40 tabs up top. This is not unexpected, especially with how distracted we got over on Friday. And... well, also keep in mind that I don't have to run off to work after all this year, so we can actually come back and do something off of this. But yeah, the 2,000 Mules thing, I don't have anything up on over 2,000 Mules, but it's kind of fun to watch how everyone's losing their mind over this movie. And it's doing kind of what I thought it was going to be here. Now, the thing of this is, and I don't disregard the premise that D'Souza is trying to put out with this movie. I don't. I think that he's got a lot to say. I think he's done a lot of research to this, but I think a big part of the problem, number one, is the fact that it's coming straight from Dinesh D'Souza, who has a vested interest in seeing Trump go back and win the 2020 election, because once, the orange god comes down from the sky, small g, by the way, comes down from the sky on a Pegasus and saves us all from the hell of communism, D'Souza, I believe, is supposed to be waiting for a big, lucrative government position off of this. Again, I have not seen the movie. There are things that are talked about on Twitter already that I already kind of knew had happened, so... I mean, this is not a huge thing for me to... I don't need to go and see 2,000 Mules to know that there was honk-honk going on with the 2020 election, which was, Susan, the freest and fairest election in history. But it did exactly what I thought it was going to be. A part of the problem with a movie like 2,000 Mules is A, it came out from Dinesh D'Souza, and B, it went on to Rumble, which means that it's going on into an echo chamber, and the people on the left who are not going to, they could sit down and watch with a microscope every detail of this movie, and they're just going to come out and say, it's all made up, it's all fabricated. No, nothing like that happened. It's all fake. He just faked it all. He's an evil right-wing Trump supporter. I think the information needs to be out there. I really do. I think this is definitely something that we need to see. That's something that we need to talk about. And of course, the totally nothing bad that happened out of the 2020 election, because it was the freest, fairest election in history. But everybody who's going to watch this movie went into this movie knowing, beyond a shadow of a doubt, in their hearts, believing everything that D'Souza had to say. And everybody who's bad-mouthing the movie, bashing the movie, went into the movie, if they did happen to see it, but most of them didn't because it came out on Rumble, because it's a Nazi site. But anybody who disbelieves what's being proposed in this movie knows it's false beyond a reasonable doubt. You can't convince them otherwise. That's a part of the problem with this. But, I mean, if you guys want to see it, it's streaming for free on Rumble right now. I don't know if I'm going to sit down and watch it, just because of the fact of, you know, again, going into this beyond a reasonable doubt, I don't know. But that it's doing exactly what I thought it was going to do. All right, let's get into the news, though, because we've got a lot of that to get into. Let's get the live chat up so I can see who's hanging out here. Looks like I've seen Ron Helton in here temporarily. Arvolt is lurking. Apparently not on the D-Live side, but let's get to it. Let's get started. But before we do... Whoops, wrong card. There we go. Head on over and check out the website, turnsofpagesproductions.com. No content up there yet, but once we get started, we'll be carrying great shows such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Porch Boys. Our friend Britt Salt will be on there, as well as a new show, so go and check that out. Once we get started, we will be ready to get you guys news that comes by the common man for the common man, so go check that out, turnsofpagesproductions.com. And if you want to help us in a more direct way, we do have the Give, Send, Go. That is givesendgo.com/turnsofpages101. If you guys want to help us get this started and get this moving, get us a place where we can go and have news coming from, you know, people that are just like you, and make sure that our friend Bobby Joe gets paid as well. So go check that out. givesendgo.com/turnsofpages101. For turnsofpagesproductions.com. It's going to be a great time, and we hope to see you there. All right. Let's get in with the Dow. The Dow is to 32,899.37. That was another very small drop throughout the day on Friday. Now, it dropped off like a stone, dropping down to just about 32.5. And then it clawed its way back up over the previous close, then dropped, and then clawed its way back up almost to the previous close. It was almost to the previous close again, and then it had another small drop at the very, very close of business on Friday. Now, it is looking like the futures are starting out down 500 points, which is getting us very close to another record low for the 52-week low. Dropping now with 997, 300 points would bring us, or sorry, 500 points to bring us to 32,497.97 at the start, which is only a couple hundred points off of 32,272.64, which was the 52-week low. So this last rate hike really, really hit the economy, and I think they tried to hide it. I think they really did. At the outset of this, that's kind of what we're seeing, because, you know, we saw futures up, futures level, futures steady, and then a couple closes that were either 800 points up or just kind of sitting there coming back to the line. So we'll see what happens with that. Bitcoin, however, it is time to officially buy the dip, I would say. This is not official financial advice, but if you are interested in buying dips, well, that's a dip. That right there on the screen that you see right there, that is a dip. So if that's the kind of thing that strikes your fancy, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money, but if you're the kind of person who enjoys finding an asset at its lowest point, or at a very, very low point from where it is, 32,925 US dollars and 10 US cents is where the Bitcoin is. And this, I say this every week. Now, people say stock market is the reflection of what the economy is going to do. I look at, especially when we look at the middle and the lower classes here, who may have a Bitcoin here or there just because it's cool and it's a meme. This is the part that worries me when I see something like this here, because stocks do, for the most part, require some sort of broker to buy and sell. I mean, you've got your online stock shares, but even there, as far as I know, and I've never really done it, As far as I know, you've still got to wait until the next business day to go back and get your cash if you do have to go liquidate a stock. And you've got to pay your fees to your broker and everything. Bitcoin is a much, much simpler, more streamlined way to go back and do this. And it's a quicker way to get liquid cash. So if people are dumping out on their Bitcoin, that does make me wonder what's going on. I am not saying that this is a dire circumstance where you need to go back and dump everything out of here because the bottom's going to fall out. But this is the point where I start to watch and say, hey, okay, what's going to happen? Is this going to come back up and be the dip? Is this going to drop even further because people are trying to get their cash out? What are we going to do? And again, as I said, with Doge, with Shiba, and yes, with Bitcoin as well. One of the problems that we see with Bitcoin is that there's really no way to spend it. So you can kind of watch where it's going because of people liquidating it back out to cash. So something to watch. Don't panic. This is not a panic move right now, but something to watch and something to see as we move on. Fuel. That's more good news right there. Which means that I'm probably going to go fill up at this point after the show because I don't want to see it get much higher before I get back out of here. The low price leader in the Madison area is the Cenex at Sun Prairie. 3 weeks ago, when we went back to fuel, this was out of the range of the high price, $3.78. But now your average is sitting more about like $3.84 in Portage at the BP, $3.85 at the Costco in Sun Prairie. The Race gas station, $3.85, $3.89 at the BP in DeForest. $3.89 is going to be your usual average coming back out of here, your median. The Shell and Lodi is at $3.90, and the BP on Mill Pond Road in Madison proper is at $3.93. So we're seeing those fuel prices go up. And of course, as I always say, these fuel prices are the average for the Madison, Wisconsin area. Your fuel may be higher or lower, and the national average may also be higher and lower. I know that fuel in town over in Janesville is already higher, and I'm going to be going down there and throwing some fuel in because, well, that's a bunch of money. But that's what we see coming off of that. From IBD, let's start in with the finance for the morning. Dow futures tumble as market correction extends losses. Why Apple is an absolute loser. From Ed Carson. Dow futures fell sharply Monday morning along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures as the 10-year Treasury yield continued to run higher, nearing long-term highs. The stock market correction worsened last week, though the slim to modest weekly losses belie the volatile sell-off. Late as the Treasury yield spiked, the NASDAQ undercut a rally attempt and it hit its worst level since 2020. Key inflation reports are on tap this week. That could be a market catalyst either way. While the rally attempt is still technically underway, on the S&P and the Dow, the market correction isn't showing any signs of a bottom. Eli Lilly, Albemarle, Dollar Tree, Zim Integrated Shipping, and new IPO Accelerate Energy are 5 stocks worth watching, either in buy zones or near buy zones, or simply flexing relative strength. Relative strength is important, but in a market correction, relative winners can be absolute losers. Apple is a great example. Its relative strength line is at record highs, but Apple stock has fallen for 6 straight weeks. Eli Lilly and Zim are on the IBD 50. On the futures, Dow futures fell 1.1% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures lost 1.45%, and NASDAQ futures plunged 1.9%. Don't worry, that's that Trump economy kicking in. Give it some time and the Biden economy will kick back in. That's what they'll tell us over on Twitter. The 10-year yield rose 5 points to 3.1. Whoa! Was not expecting that. 3.17% after reaching 3.2% earlier. U.S. crude fell nearly 3%. Gold and copper prices also fell significantly. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. 3.2% Treasury yield. Wow. With a shrinking economy and mostly coming from the printing of cash. Oof. Well, even though they say gold and copper is falling significantly, that might be where I'd go start looking if it was me. But this is, of course, again, not official financial advice. From CNBC. Dow futures dropped more than 500 points as market sell-off continues with yields on the rise. From Samantha Subin and Jesse Pound. Stock futures fell sharply early Monday, with U.S. rates continuing to rise and traders struggled to find their footing after a big market swings last week. Futures tied to the Dow dropped 450 points or 1.4%. S&P 500 futures fell 1.8%, while those for the NASDAQ lost 2.3%, so they clawed their way back a little bit. The benchmark 10-year yield note hit its highest level since late 2018 on Monday. It was last trading at 3.185%. 2018, when the market was strong, the GDP was growing leaps and bounds, and your wages were rising like crazy. That 2018. That rate increase put pressure on big tech names such as Meta Platforms and Alphabet. Shares of Meta were down 2.5% in the pre-market, and Alphabet lost 2.7%. Amazon, Apple, and Netflix were all down more than 2% as well. Energy stocks fell broadly in the U.S. Oil futures slid more than 2% to 107.14 per barrel. Occidental Petroleum dipped 2.8% before the bell, and Schlumberger slipped 2.4%. We expect markets to remain volatile, with risks skewed to the downside as stagflation risks continue to increase, wrote Barclays' Manish Deshpande. While we cannot discount a sharp bear market rally, we think upside is limited. Wall Street is coming off a wild week as investors weigh the prospects of a rising interest rate against the potential for slower economic growth. Last week, the NASDAQ lost 1.54%, while the S&P and Dow dropped 0.2% and 0.21 and 0.24, respectively. It was the sixth straight losing week for the Dow and the fifth straight for the other two major indices. While the cumulative moves for the week were not out of the ordinary, some of the day-to-day swings were eye-popping. The Dow had its best day since 2020 on Wednesday, but then erased all those gains and more on Thursday. The short-lived Wednesday rally came after Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said the central bank was not considering a 75 basis point hike at the upcoming meetings. Stocks and bonds rallied following that comment, but reversed course on Thursday. So, the Fed is manipulating the currency. People are scared. You're in stagflation. Your gas prices are rising. And they can dress up the unemployment numbers all that they want. But we still had 20,000 new claims to bring us back up to 200,000 last week. And another big inflation report coming. That's likely going to be even worse. So, we will see what happens with that. And, well, after seeing what happened in 2008, I am starting to get nervous. But not as nervous as the people who are in Secret Service that are guarding the First Lady. Our top story today is not what happened in my neck of the woods. Our top story from the day comes to us from CNN. First Lady Jill Biden makes unannounced trip to Ukraine. From Kate Bennett. We might have to go just watch this video. And by the way, Fred Savage is fired from the Wonder Years. It's a reboot, but still. Let's actually look at this for a second. I'm going to go throw some links out to some other platforms here. But yeah, let's see what's happening with our First Lady in the Ukraine and why she's there.
First Lady Jill Biden, as I mentioned, just made an unannounced trip to Ukraine. You can see her now. We're going to show the video of her greeting and hugging the Ukrainian First Lady during this humanitarian trip to the region. Will we see President Biden in Ukraine sometime soon?
Well, I can't preview what the president's travel is going to be, but I can say that the First Lady's visit has to have given so much support and encouragement to the Ukrainian women and children. And for her to go there on Mother's Day to meet with the Ukrainian First Lady, I think sends a very strong, a very positive message. I met with Ukrainian mothers on the border when I traveled to Romania and Moldova a few weeks ago. I see the strength that these women have. So having the First Lady there, encouraging them, supporting them, actually in Ukraine, I think sends a strong message of support and commitment that the U.S. government has to supporting Ukrainians moving forward.
Yeah, we'll be talking about this. We'll be talking about that just a little bit later. But when in life have you ever seen a First Lady make a diplomatic trip like this? This is not something that happens. That's part of the problem that I see with this is not something that just happens. Like, the First Lady doesn't just go visit the Ukraine, a war zone, a zone that's so dangerous that Volodymyr Zelensky himself has to clean the bodies up out of the streets. That's not what happens. Let's read a little bit of this, though. This is from Kate Bennett. First Lady Jill Biden spent part of Mother's Day making an unannounced trip. Oh, unannounced, you say, to Uzhhorod, Ukraine, a small city near the far southwestern corner of Ukraine. So, I mean, she was at least... Let's actually see where Uzhhorod is. Uzhhorod, because the vowel to consonant ratio in a Cyrillic city has got to be much imbalanced. Yeah, so you are right on the Slovakian border at that point. Which is interesting because I'm almost positive that Slovakia is where Melania came from. That's interesting. So you are right about here. I'll make sure our libertarian friends, we can talk about this with them because we can point to it on the map now. So that's where she went. From what I understand, fairly safe area because most of the fighting is happening all the way down here. But still to come out here and just go into what they say is the most dangerous place in the world. To Uzhhorod. To the Ukraine. A country that for the last 10 weeks has been under invasion by Russia. At a converted school that now serves as temporary housing for displaced citizens, Biden met with Ukrainian First Lady Olena Zelenska, who has not been seen in public since the start of the war on February 24th. I wanted to come on Mother's Day, Biden said to her Ukrainian counterpart, the two women seated at a small table in the classroom of a former school that's now the source of temporary housing for displaced Ukrainians, including 48 children. We thought it was important to show the Ukrainian people this war has to stop, and this war has been brutal, Biden added. The people of the U.S. stand with the people of Ukraine. Zelenska, who early in the Russian invasion sent a letter to Biden, has exchanged correspondence with her American counterpart in recent weeks, the U.S. officials tell CNN. First of all, I would like to thank you for a very courageous act, said Zelenska, speaking through an interpreter to Biden. Because we understand what it takes for U.S. First Lady to come here during war, when military actions are taking place every day, where air sirens happening every day. Even today, we feel support. And we all feel leadership of U.S. President, but we would like to note that Mother's Day is a very symbolic day for us because we also feel love and support during such an important day. The meeting of the two women included a closed-door, of course it was closed-door, bilateral, which lasted for about an hour and took place at what was a school before the war. They keep telling us over and over in this article that this used to be a school. The building has been transformed into a refuge. Okay, let's see how many times we can count how the fact that this was a school is marked in the article. We're at 3 so far. It's like in Dude, Where's My Car? The continued is a mysterious and powerful device, and its mystery is only exceeded by its power. A collaboration between the government of Ukraine and the International Organization for Migration, the UN Migration Agency. Dozens of internally displaced persons now live in the building on a leafy property near the city center of Uzhhorod. Biden, who is 3 days into a 4-day visit to Europe to spend time with refugee families in Romania and Slovakia, traveled about 15 miles into western Ukraine from the Slovak border town of Vyzny Nemeke to Uzhhorod. The First Lady is the latest high-profile American and the first member of President Biden's family to visit the war-torn country in recent weeks. Are you sure? Because I feel like Hunter's got a vested interest here, and he's probably had to go make sure that certain documents don't exist and were probably burned. By the way, my big question here is, has Russia breached Burisma yet? Have they been in there for that? The First Lady has spent 2 days in Europe meeting with humanitarian aid organizations and government officials in both Romania and Slovakia, as well as interacting with displaced Ukrainians in both countries. Her focus primarily on the health and emotional welfare of the women and children. Biden's visit to Ukraine is the first time a U.S. First Lady has visited a war zone since Laura Bush made a secret 10-hour visit to Afghanistan in 2008. That doesn't make it any better. Bush made her first visit to that country, an active combat zone, in 2005. Both of Bush's visits centered around her interest and support of Afghan women. As Second Lady in 2010, Jill accompanied then Vice President Biden on a trip to Baghdad, Iraq, over the July 4th holiday. And that's something I kind of want to point out to this. Now, as far as Laura going to Afghanistan, I don't agree with that either, but there again, that almost seems like that's baiting to come out and say, hey, the First Lady's here. Go attack. Go capture. And that was one of the things that was pointed out in one of the Discord chats that I had about this last night when I found out about this as well is, okay, are they trying to bait a kidnapping attempt coming out of this? Because that's the only reason I could understand why you would send somebody into the most hellish hellscape, war-torn country in the world of Ukraine. And remember, that's what the media is trying to tell us that this is. As far as this goes, as far as Jill goes, and as far as what's happening here, now they point out the fact that this is not unprecedented for Jill Biden to go overseas to a war-torn region. But see, the problem is the first time she was on the side of the houseplant sheep. And really, honestly, I'm going to come right out and tell you this. If you're looking for Biden to go over and do something in Ukraine, I would say that Joe going over there would probably be a better idea than Jill. Unless, of course, she is either pulling the money, making sure the money gets transferred properly, or she's the one that's actually in charge. And that thought has crossed my mind too. That he's not in charge, that she's in charge. And then, of course, on top of that, the closed-door meeting. Did Vladimir show up for that, and that's why they couldn't have the open door off of that? What got discussed in something like this? And what actual diplomatic power do the First Ladies of the Ukraine and the U.S. actually have with each other? I don't know. But this is weird. I'm sure we'll continue to watch and see where this goes. Let's grab one from CBS News. Something else to pay attention to over the weekend as we get started with this. Because this may be a catalyst to say, hey, we are actually in this war. We are active players in this war because, well, with a headline like this, and we'll look into the article, we are active players in this war. From CBS, intelligence provided by the U.S. helped Ukrainians sink Russian ship Moskva. From Eleanor Watson and David Martin. Intelligence provided by the U.S. helped Ukrainians sink the Russian Moskva in April, according to a senior defense official. The U.S. shared the location of the Moskva in the Black Sea with the Ukrainians, but had no role in the decision to strike it, the official said. Yeah. The role the U.S. played in sinking of the Moskva came after reports on Thursday detailed how intelligence the U.S. has provided helped Ukrainian forces kill Russian generals. Without providing specifics, Pentagon spokesman John Kirby told reporters Thursday that the U.S. has been providing Ukraine useful battlefield intelligence throughout the war as Ukraine defends itself, but Kirby said the Pentagon does not provide intelligence on the location of senior military leaders on the battlefield or participate in the targeting decisions of the Ukrainian military. So, you're telling me, by the way, in this article, you're telling me, no, we didn't tell them to go strike the ship. We just went out and told them exactly where it is, where it was going to go, where it was most likely to go, who was on board, and how they could hit it. But no, we didn't tell them to go and hit it. No, they came to that all on their own. It's just like I said with the Jill Biden thing. When you look at this and you start to wonder, okay, is this a thing where they're coming out looking and saying, hey, here's a nice juicy target for you. You don't want to hit that though, do you? Which is odd when you start thinking about Jill Biden in and of itself, but we'll leave that one alone for right now. And then, it's right there. Don't you want to fire a missile off? Don't you want to throw some munitions at it? Oh, it would be such a shame if something like this would happen. This makes me nervous because we are active combatants in this war. I mean, we're not putting boots on the ground, but what were we warned about from the beginning? What did Vladimir say from the beginning? If anybody from NATO comes in and tries to interfere in war, I unleash punishment like you have never seen before. Neon sign, interference. Throw the flag. But apparently our good friends over at CBS don't think this is interference. Alright, let's grab one from my neck of the woods here. And by the way, there's the map that I was going to talk about here. I looked. I've never been to this building that we're about to talk about, but I know exactly where it is. In fact, that is the key marker right there that let me know where this is. Because this goes off to the other side of the airport. I used to work over in this area, so I'm fairly familiar with what's going on here. In fact, I used to drive down 113 all the time. I know where the Ale Asylum is, so that's how I knew where you come up off to this side road. And I don't know if I've ever driven off this side road, but I know where it is. And then you shoot up there, and there's the place. But let's have a look here from Channel 3000. Madison Police Fire Department investigating fire at Wisconsin Family Action Office, which is I think the foremost pro-life building in Wisconsin, if I remember correctly. Now, they talk about a signature, and I would say that this would probably be a good signature. I am not going to rule out the fact that this might be a false flag. I know that the right doesn't typically do false flags, but I'm not going to rule that out right now. This does need to have a full investigation to it, but here's the signature right here. If abortions aren't safe, then you aren't either, is what they say on the wall. From Kyle Jones writes, Madison Police and Fire Department are investigating a fire at an office building on the city's north side. Crews were called into the 2800 block of International Lane on Sunday after 6 a.m. and flames could be seen coming from the facility. Madison Fire Department crews were able to put out the flames and no injuries were reported. Officers and arson investigators have not determined the cause of the fire. Police confirmed the Office of Wisconsin Family Action was damaged in the incident. The group is a PAC that lobbies against abortion rights and gay marriage. they don't lobby against those things. That is Channel 3000 putting their editorial spin on this. Speaking to News 3 Now, WFA President Julaine Appling said that someone had thrown Molotov cocktails into her office and had burned books. Appling said that she did not know the person who would have lit the fire, but said the suspect left a signature with graffiti. As we see right there, if abortions aren't safe, then you aren't either. Madison police confirmed that at least one Molotov was thrown at the office during the incident. On Sunday, the Madison Police Department issued a statement regarding their investigation and officially ruled the fire an arson. Our quote, "The Madison Police Department understands the members of our community are feeling deep emotions due to the recent news involving the U.S. Supreme Court. Early Sunday morning, our team began investigating a suspicious fire inside an office building on the city's north side. It appears a specific nonprofit that supports anti-abortion measures was targeted. Our department has and continues to support people being able to speak freely and openly about their beliefs." It's Madison, no they don't. But we feel that any acts of violence, including the destruction of property, did not aid in any cause. We have made our federal partners aware of this incident and are working with them and the Madison Fire Department as we investigate the arson. We will provide an update on this case Monday at 2 p.m. Specific details regarding the logistics of this update will be sent at a later time. And that's a fairly truncated version of this because this was pretty much right afterwards. Channel 3000 is a fairly breaking news local, and we've got some of the other ashes and such here. And a brick. And some of the carnage from the inside where you can see carpet burning, the chair overturned. One of the windows is boarded up probably because it got bricked the fuck out. We're going to do a follow-up here with the Daily Wire. Pro-life group attacked in Wisconsin. If abortions aren't safe, then you aren't either. From Ryan Saavedra. The headquarters of a pro-life organization in Wisconsin was set on fire Sunday morning in what appears to be a politically motivated attack. The attack on Wisconsin Family Action, located in Madison, came a week after an early draft of the U.S. Supreme Court majority opinion leaked last week that indicated the controversial Roe v. Wade decision would likely be struck down. No one from the organization was in the building at the time of the attack, which included a Molotov that was thrown through a window and failed to ignite. Whoever was behind the attack set another fire nearby that burned a part of the wall. Local media reported that graffiti was left inside the building. If abortions aren't safe, then you aren't either. Madison Police Department said, "We have made our federal partners aware of this incident and are working with them and the Madison Fire Department as we investigate the arson." Well, our federal partners don't really need to be involved in this because I'm going to tell you right now, just based on the demographics of Madison, Wisconsin, a place that I used to work, that it is a very, 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 very likely chance that this came internally from Madison proper. To do something like this to a pro-life family center, they didn't need to contract people from out of state. That I can tell you about Madison. Julaine Appling, the president of the organization, said the attack was a direct threat against us. "Imagine if somebody had been in the office when this happened," she said. "They would have been hurt." Now, I'm gonna pause on this for just a second because we've had a week. We've had a full week of this kind of stuff. I'm going to tell you right now, Mrs. Appling, that if they wanted to hurt somebody in the building, they could have. Not only did they do this on a Sunday morning for an organization that is fairly religious, they did this on a Sunday morning of Mother's Day. There was no chance there was going to be somebody in this building. Which does raise a few red hairs, and honestly, if this was going the other direction, I would be saying hoax hate. I don't know. I do have some suspicions about this. I can believe that this happened, by the way. But I do have a certain level of suspicion that goes with it as well. It's just my nature. I question everything. I don't have a partisan line on what I question and what I don't question. I question everything. You guys know that. That's probably, I think, part of the reason you guys watch me. Wisconsin's Democratic Governor Tony Evers, this skeleton that's controlled by the teachers union himself, condemned the attack in a statement where he urged people to engage in politics without resorting to violence. And probably had a big wink on it as well. Evers tweets out, "We condemn the violence and hatred in all forms, including the actions at Wisconsin Family Action in Madison last night. We reject violence against any person for disagreeing with another's view. Violence is not the way forward. Hurting others is never the answer. We will work against overturning Roe and attacks on reproductive rights by leading with empathy and compassion. We will defend what we believe in with our words and our voices, in the streets, in halls of government, and at the ballot box. In Wisconsin, we must lead by example." Ron Johnson was a little bit more direct to the point. "This attack is abhorrent. It should be condemned by all." Kevin Nicholson. That was Clayfish. The first one here, but Kevin Nicholson will get it as well. Clayfish, one of our gubernatorial candidates and former lieutenant governor. "Terrifying to see the left attack Wisconsin Family Action on Mother's Day. The radicals are trying to stop us, but they know we won't be intimidated from defending life." Disgusting behavior from the left, Kevin Nicholson said, who's also a gubernatorial candidate. Biden has already refused to condemn it, and both Evers and Josh Call of Wisconsin show they want to enforce mob rule and further degrade law and order in Wisconsin. This has to stop. Governor Evers cannot be silent. Now, Governor Evers did make a statement about it. I don't necessarily think it was a strong enough statement. True. But he did make a statement about this, Kevin Nicholson. Don't turn this into a campaign ad. There's another angle of what happened there, and the window that's busted out, and the burning carpet that went along with that. And a little bit more, a couple more pictures from Mr. Nyo. The Madison police chief released a statement about the far-left attack on the Wisconsin anti-abortion group. "Federal resources will be used to investigate the attack. Graffiti messages at the scene share the same slogan and symbols of Antifa." Let's see. We've got the busted out window. Another angle yet. More going on over here, and the abortions aren't safe and you aren't either. And then we have anarchy and 1312, which I guess I don't know the 1312 symbolism. I'm sure somebody in the chat can correct me. But that's what we see off of that. And again, like I said, as far as Madison goes, like, I don't think that I would start looking for somebody who crossed state lines to do this. Just knowing the area like I do and knowing the politics of the city like I do, I'm pretty sure that came internally somewhere. As far as this goes, yes, I do see opportunities where people are going to start making this into a ballot box issue, obviously. I wish they wouldn't, because this does seem politically convenient. And it does raise my suspicion level off of it, obviously. Yeah, Lieutenant Pickle says, what does the 1312 mean? Zesty says, sees semi-cursive writings. Me. Oh yeah, that's an 80s/early 90s baby. What does the 1312 mean? Oh, ACAB in numbers. But that's what we're getting off of that. This did come in the wake of other protests that were supposedly planned. Now, I've not seen a vast reporting of any other sort of protests going on outside of Catholic churches. If you guys did see some of that, please feel free to leave that in the Discord. You guys, there is a link for that in the chat, or the Gilded as well. You can do that as well. I check and I get a lot of my news sources from both of those, so go and check that out. But reading from Fox News, Will pro-abortion protests at Catholic churches affect the upcoming midterm elections for Democrats? From Kyle Morris. Several pro-choice protests and vandalism at Catholic churches across the nation following a leaked draft opinion from the Supreme Court, which showed that federal protections for abortion may soon be in jeopardy, but whether such demonstrations will have an impact on Catholic voters is uncertain. Plans for Mother's Day protests, orchestrated primarily through social media sites like Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit, appear to target the religion of some Supreme Court justices after the draft High Court opinion, striking down its 1973 Roe v. Wade decision, which grants federal protections for abortion, was leaked to the public last week. As previously reported, the group known as Ruth Sent Us, which has a TikTok account with more than 20,000 followers, initially posted a video of a group of women wearing costumes inspired by Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, walking into what appears to be the front of a Catholic church during Mass. Read another book. I am solemnly convinced, by the way, that the people that are doing this have only ever read the 7 Harry Potter books and The Handmaid's Tale. And by the way, having read them, I'm even questioning that. I think, because from what I understand, the book The Handmaid's Tale is not the same as the Hulu series. And in fact, the Hulu series was more an original product based on Margaret Atwood's book to tell us how the Orange Man was bad. Other activist groups, including Rise Up for Abortion Rights, Pro-Choice with Heart, Strike for Choice, and others, are also calling for protests between May 8th and May 15th. In addition, reports of churches being vandalized surfaced last week after the release of Justice Alito's draft opinion. Brian Birch, president of Catholic Vote, a nonprofit conservative political advocacy group, told Fox Digital over the weekend that he believes Democrats are in hot water amid the ongoing church protests as midterm elections near. Democrats are in a difficult position, Birch said. Their base is clamoring for a full-throated, restriction-free abortion rights policy, yet the majority of voters aren't with them. I think this is another example of Democrats misreading the public and overreaching. They've done it on parental rights, on schools, curriculum, race, and now abortion. The leaked opinion is actually a compromise on abortion, Birch said. It merely returns the issue to the states to work out how best to care for unborn children and their mothers. It's not an unborn child, it's a clump of cells. It imposes nothing. As far as Catholics are concerned, Catholics are very practical voters, which is why many of them swing both of the political parties. I think Democrats need some Catholics in order to win key races. You know, like our Catholic president, who was busy in the Middle East, chowing down. I'm sorry, he was in Poland, not the Middle East. In Poland, chowing down on pepperoni on a Friday during Lent. Our great Catholic president. And to the extent Democrats align themselves with the extreme left, I think they're playing with fire. Birch, discussing the destruction of Catholic churches over the years, said he believes that there will be universal condemnation against Catholics regarding the recent vandalism. Both Democrats and Republicans do not want to see their houses of worship defaced or destroyed, or their shrines or symbols destroyed. Well, yeah, it's kind of the same thing that we saw with the Capitol Selfie Fest. A lot of very religious people didn't want to see their main house of worship on Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm sorry, that's not where the Capitol is. Where's the Capitol? The White House is on Pennsylvania Avenue. U.S. Capitol address. As my FBI agent gets another piece of the case on me. I'm sorry. Their main house of worship on the left is on 1st Street Southeast in the District of Columbia. And they couldn't stand to see their house of worship defaced either. And yes, it is a religion, by the way. They will come back and tell you, it's not a religion because we think religion is stupid, as they worship whoever the most high-ranking member of the Democrat Party is. Some more pictures of the carnage from Mr. Nyo. I'm sorry, this is Twitter banter coming out for this. Andy Neo says left-wing group Ruth sent us, who published a map of the homes of Supreme Court justices to target, says it will burn the Eucharist to protest the Catholic Church and Catholicism. Burning the Eucharist would be like burning the body of Jesus Christ, which I don't think that Ruth sent us would care. In fact, I think that encourages them more, if I understand their goals correctly. Let's look at the pictures. Ruth sent us, at Ruth sent us on Twitter, tweets out, "Stuff your rosaries and your weaponized prayer. We will remain outraged after this weekend, so keep praying. We'll be burning the Eucharist to show our disgust for the abuse Catholic churches have condoned for centuries." The Twitter profile says, "We rise up against a corrupt and illegitimate Supreme Court." Red Cloaks, pro-choice, hashtag Ruth sent us, hashtag ruthless. I'm guessing this is Alito, Barrett, Kavanaugh. I know that's Thomas. I don't know who the other two are right offhand. But with crowns on their heads, I don't really understand what's going on here. But in response to the threats of violence here, the New York Post writes, NYPD to beef up patrols at Catholic churches over planned protests after Roe v. Wade draft leak. From Larry Salona and Natalie O'Neill. The NYPD will beef up patrols at Catholic churches citywide this weekend amid planned protests over the leaked Supreme Court draft decision overturning Roe v. Wade, according to an internal police memo. Officers are instructed to do at least 2 drive-by patrols per tour between midnight Friday and midnight Sunday to potentially combat violent pro-choice protests or other chaotic events. Due to recent events surrounding the U.S. Supreme Court document leak pertaining to Roe v. Wade, cops must have a heightened awareness while on patrol, states the NYPD memo sent out on Thursday. Special attention must be paid in the vicinity of the Catholic Church, especially during a Sunday morning Mass. Joseph Swilling, Director of Communications at the Archdiocese of New York, told the Post on Friday that the Archdiocese plans to increase security, too, because of the planned demonstrations. Yeah, there's a Wisconsin-based chat group on Discord that I'm in, and they're fans and former fans, as of myself, of Matt Christensen. That's how we all know each other. But we were just talking about this, too, and I was actually debating on Sunday. In spite of the fact that, yes, it is Mother's Day, I was debating skipping church just so I could watch and see if any of this actually would happen, if anybody would be stupid enough to do anything like this. I did wind up going to church, and I was told by the members in there who goes to a Latin Mass in Milwaukee, because he's fucking hardcore like that. But he told me, no, you have to go to church because you have to be there to form a wall and protect the mothers while you're at the church. I'm like, dude, I live in redacted. That shit ain't happening here. That shit ain't happening in redacted where I live. We're pretty based around here. It's pretty rural, that's why. We're fairly based where I live. We are aware of the call for some kind of protest, and without going into specifics, we'll work with law enforcement and take appropriate steps as needed, he said. And who is he again? The Archdiocese of New York, Joseph Swilling. There's some of the graffiti, by the way, on the back of that. Fuck the church, fuck the state, my body, my choice, keep your religion off our bodies. Pro-choice activists this week called on Americans to storm Catholic churches on Mother's Day to protest the potential end of nationwide abortion rights. And I noticed, again, I didn't see a lot of articles saying that they did that, so either that was for show to try to draw police resources or waste police resources, or they just realized that there were going to be actual men out there and got scared. from ABC 13 News. This is, again, review because we're past the Mother's Day thing already. From ABC 13, abortion rights extremists threaten Catholic masses. Virginia AG issues warning. From Brandon Shulita. Virginia's AG has a warning for anyone considering interrupting Catholic masses Sunday with an illegal abortion rights protest. His office will be on the lookout for criminal violations. AG Jason Miyares sent a statement on Saturday after some on the extreme left have suggested disrupting Catholic churches services as a form of protest. This comes as 6 of the 9 are Catholic judges poised to overturn Roe v. Wade. I deeply respect the First Amendment rights of free speech and assembly, Miyares wrote in a statement, but no one has the right to interfere with the fundamental and natural right of all Virginians to practice their religion in peace. Let's have a listen to this. Hey, look, the red robes. And the usher saying, hey, come on, let's not do this.
They shall bear fruit even
For 2,000 years, the Catholic Church has been an institution for the enslavement of women. The Church claims to love children, but has covered up decades.
declaring how just is the Lord, my rock, in whom there is no wrong.
Church has been at the forefront of attacking LGBTQ people, calling gay marriage the ultimate attack of the evil one. Corny Leon and the church are seeking to deny the humanity of all women and eliminate a basic right, the right to abortion. Women are not vessels. Women are not. Touch me.
On our property. Get out, get out, get out, get out, get out, get out.
So that lady looks really confused at the very end. Like, where'd my friends go?
On our property.
What? Where'd everybody go?
Get out, get out, get out, get out, get out, get out.
And again, I tell you, read another book. Read another book. This was in San Francisco, by the way. A group that calls itself Ruth Sent Us is among those using social media to encourage Catholic mass disruptions. And I noticed, by the way, they're not getting their accounts shut down either. There might be a political bent to that. Based on social media claims and videos of past demonstrations, potential disruptions could play off a fictitious TV series, The Handmaid's Tale, because they've never read another book and they've never seen another Hulu series, which portrays government overthrown by religious radicals who abuse and rape women while stripping them of their rights. Videos on social media have shown women barging into Catholic churches, recently dressed in red handmaids outfits. Wasn't the premise of that, and again, I've never read the book, I've never seen it, but other people have told me, isn't the premise of that is that a disease has left like 3/4 of the women barren and unable to bear children, so in order to perpetuate the actual human race, then this 1/4 of women needs to reproduce constantly to make up for everybody else. I don't know if that's the premise or not, and I still wouldn't agree with that, by the way, if that was true. Because I think that is a bit excessive to have government force you to reproduce if you don't want to. But it's not just the fact of they're taking every woman in the world and enslaving them either. Virginia's long tradition of protecting religious liberties dates back to the founding of our Commonwealth when Thomas Jefferson penned the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom that's now enshrined in the Commonwealth's Constitution. Mayoris wrote, "As Attorney General, I am charged with protecting this sacred right for all Virginians." Now, I will say that the people in the red robes are practicing a religion as well. They just don't know it, and they'll tell you it's not a religion when they're doing it, but they are quoting from their holy scripture of The Handmaid's Tale as a warning to their religious followers that if they don't murder at least 1 million babies a year, then the evil Satan, known as Trump, will come in and force them all to give birth repeatedly, over and over again. From Fox Business, UPS donated to pro-choice groups said to be targeting churches with protests. Apparently not enough, because they didn't do a whole lot of that, except for, what we just saw there. From Houston, Keene and Peter Hassan. UPS provided financial backing to a pro-choice group that is said to be planning protests against churches in response to the leaked draft opinion from the Supreme Court indicated the court is on the verge of overturning Roe v. Wade. The pro-choice group Rise Up for Abortion Rights is planning to protest churches on Mother's Day with other abortion activist organizations, including the New York City-based Dominican Women's Development Center. UPS has provided financial support to the DWDC through its charitable arm, according to the tax filings and the DWDC's public statements. The action is called for by a collective of Spanish-speaking women's rights groups and activists across the country, including from Brides March, Dominican Women's Development Center, Ni Una Menos, and Las 17, the Rise Up for Abortion Rights website reads. Several cities will be hosting protests outside of prominent churches in their towns. These can look like a group of people holding up signs wearing Handmaid's Tale outfits because, again, they've never seen another book. They've never read another book. Passing out flyers outside to churchgoers or doing a die-in, it continues. According to the 2019 990 form of UPS's charitable arm, the UPS Foundation, the delivery company, donated $10,000 to DWDC that October. UPS was also listed as one of the activist group Foundation supporters for their 2021 virtual gala. I would like to see something more recent before I condemn them. Obviously. Because that is 3 years ago at this point. Back when we weren't seeing protests like this. And if they did know about protests like this, if they pulled some of their support, if they did some of that, I don't know. But I would like to see something more recent before I condemn them. Hey, look, there's somebody holding a sign that says criminalize sperm. From the Daily Wire. Angry abortion activists protest outside of Kavanaugh and Roberts' homes. From Mary Margaret Olahan. Angry abortion activists marched through suburban neighborhoods on Saturday evening to the residential homes of Justices Roberts and Kavanaugh. Between 50 to 100 protesters gathered outside of Kavanaugh's Chevy Chase, Maryland home. Police told the Daily Wire on Saturday evening. The Daily Wire observed that the lights were on and the house was brightly lit. It was unclear whether the Kavanaugh family was home. Police said that they are anticipating more protests throughout the week since pro-abortion groups nationally have called for a large-scale backlash to the news that Roe may soon be overturned. Ruth Sentas, one of the groups organizing the protests, has also urged protesters to stand at or in local Catholic churches on Sunday, Mother's Day. I don't think there's a way to change Justice Kavanaugh's mind. What I think there is a way to convince other people that there is a fight worth fighting for. One young man wearing a 1973 to Infinity shirt underneath a rain poncho told the Daily Wire. And when you look at the 60s and you look at other protest movements throughout this country and throughout the history of protest movements, people need to see that energy and they feel They need to feel that energy so they get up and do something too, he said. When enough people disobey, the law is changed. Hey, now do guns. The protester, who told the Daily Wire observed during the who the Daily Wire observed arguing with police as the authorities told him he can no longer be protesting in the suburban Maryland neighborhood, said that people will tell a friend about the protesting outside the justices' homes. They'll tell a friend they were here, they made a statement, and they felt the power of something, and they'll go and tell somebody else, he added. That's people power. That's how it works. That's grassroots. That's the whole heart of it. That's a review, of course, of what led up to this here. Ruth sent us, posted a map on its website that listed the street names where Amy Coney Barrett, John Roberts, Samuel Alito, Brett Kavanaugh, Clarence Thomas, and Neil Gorsuch each live. Google removed this map on Friday for violating the terms of service. Plot twist. The map was posted on Monday. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know when the map was posted. But that seems like the thing that Google would do. Let it sit up there until people get good and outraged and get it all printed off nice and well. Like, oops, that violated the terms of service. Protesters in the justices' neighborhoods had largely dispersed by about 8:30 p.m. following the arrival of at least 5 police cars, according to the Daily Signal's Doug Blair, whose footage shows the crowds chanting as they march through the wealthy neighborhood. Daily Wire observed the police citing the state code and telling the protesters that although they supported their First Amendment rights, they still needed to cease and desist and leave the area, noting that if protesters failed to comply, they might be subject to arrest. So, no video of this, and again, don't do this at the home. Don't protest at the home where there are innocent people around. And you all know, because many of you are moderators over here, how I feel about doxing in the beginning. Even if I've known you from the beginning, and an accident happens, I understand that. But a malicious doxing, I tell my mods, don't kick people, don't ban people. You can mute them, please don't ban them, unless they dox. If they dox, they are gone instantly. And if they try to appeal to me and say, I got kicked unnecessarily, and I'll say, no, you doxed. You don't get an appeal. You're done. Because you're trying to call the thunder down on people who are just trying to live their life, and call the thunder down on people who may live around the people who just are wanting to live their lives. If you dox, you are done. I don't care. And yes, I understand. I've made the accident myself. I've said a city name where I shouldn't have said a city name. But they're going to continue to go out to the homes. From the Blaze, speaking of extremism, Tulsi Gabbard had something to say. This was last week, but I wanted to touch on this for a second. Coconut Mommy herself, Tulsi Gabbard, bashes President Biden for essentially calling millions of Americans terrorists with his incendiary insults against the MAGA crowd. From Paul Saka, President Biden lashed out at the MAGA crowd and supporters of the former President Trump on Wednesday. The harsh and derogatory disparagement against tens of millions of Americans prodded former presidential candidate Gabbard to condemn Biden. So we'll read from that, and I think this, she's got a statement on it too. And of course she's on Fox News, which is going to pour fuel on the fire of, well, she's really a secret Republican after all. Let's review, let's listen to the Houseplant in Chief. Meanwhile, I'm going to go drop something in the Ignoramus Discord server. So let me, actually, before we do that, let me grab this quick. Yes, I'm going to grab this into another window. All right, now let's go listen to the Houseplant in Chief.
Well, that got struck down. Griswold was thought to be a bad decision by Bork, and my guess is the guy's on the Supreme Court now. What happens if you have a state changes the law saying that that children who are LGBTQ can't be in classrooms with other children. Is that legit under the way the decision is written? What are the next things that are going to be attacked? Because this MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political organization that's existed in American history.
It's ultra mega. The most extreme organization in history. You know, kind of like this, the most extreme organization in history. Political organization. Or this. Or this. Let's hear what Representative Gabbard had to say.
Gabbard is with us. I particularly, Tulsi, I'd love to get your reaction to Biden saying the MAGA crowd is the most extreme political organization that's existed in recent American history. Let's start with Antifa, BLM, the group BLM. What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them now? Well, you're a Democrat. How do you react to that? Because it's obviously ridiculous.
It's worse than ridiculous, Sean. It is absolutely despicable and outrageous. When you look at the President of the United States of America calling millions of Americans essentially terrorists, people who politically opposed him or voted against him, he's calling them terrorists in an attempt to intimidate them into silence. And we know this is because we've heard this before from both him and his attorney general. You'll remember when his attorney general said, you know, anyone who holds extremist or anti-authority views will be targeted for investigation and potential prosecution by their domestic terrorist unit. So he's essentially saying that this quote-unquote MAGA crowd are worse than terrorists. This is outrageous. And so for every American who's watching, every American who's seen this, no matter how you feel about the MAGA crowd, this is an authoritarian assault on our freedom, and we need to stand together very strongly against this attempt to intimidate and silence anyone who holds political views that are different from or opposed to what this president and his administration are furthering. This is an assault on our democracy.
I want your thoughts on the rush to cling to this potential decision in the Supreme Court that would overrule Roe v. Wade.
So, and like that's spot on. What needs to be said is the fact that, I mean, you've got stuff like this that's going on here, first and foremost, which is an intimidation tactic. I mean, these people are sponsored and bailed out when they break the law by the current sitting vice president of the United States. That happened. That has happened before. So that's something to pay attention to. But then, you've got your shock troops like this going around and Molotoving and burning down businesses in either a neighborhood that they want to make a statement in or a pro-life center, or going into churches to go back and, you know, show their message. Trespassing violated, and again, getting bailed out or not having any charges brought against them or anything else like that. And yet you've got, as Tulsi said, an authoritarian regime that's telling you that if you don't believe in the president, in our current president, then you are a domestic terrorist. That one woman I was arguing with on, I think, Friday night, couldn't believe me when I said that I was a domestic terrorist, and if we had universal health care, then I would be the first one cut off because I'm a domestic terrorist. And she said, were you at the Capitol? I said, no, I don't have to be at the Capitol to be a domestic terrorist. I don't have to be there for the selfie fest to be a domestic terrorist. I have a Gadsden flag sitting behind me. I think taxation is theft, and I think that the current president is a dementia patient. They consider me to be a domestic terrorist. But spot on, Tulsi. Let's keep going. From the New York Post. In an amazing way to try to use what's happening there to lose the midterms, McConnell has found a way to do this. McConnell says strict abortion rules possible if Roe is overturned. No, McConnell said that An outright ban is on the table if Roe is overturned at a federal level. From Mark Moore. Senator Mitch McConnell, the top Republican in the Senate, said national abortion legislation is possible if Supreme Court strikes down Roe v. Wade. If the leaked opinion became a final opinion, legislative bodies, not only at the state level but at the federal level, certainly could legislate in that area, the Kentucky Republican told USA Today. And if this were the final decision, that was the point, that it should be resolved one way or another in the legislative process. So yeah, it's possible, McConnell said. The debate over abortion rights has taken on a new emphasis since the revelation last week of a draft majority opinion written by Justice Alito that shows the court is poised to strike down the 1973 landmark decision as early as June. In the opinion, Alito wrote that Roe was egregiously wrong from the start and argued the state should decide on whether to restrict abortion rights. Yes, they should. And I hope many of them restrict them to the point of non-existence. But that is not at a federal level decision. Some Republicans have been more critical of the leaking of the document than what's on the decision, fearing a potential backlash in the polls during the November 2020 midterm elections. Yes, that is actually a possibility too, because of things like what this dumb fuck turtle has got to say. But the Senate Minority Leader said Republicans' stand on the issue will become clearer once the Supreme Court officially acts. With regard to the abortion issue, I think it's pretty clear where Senate Republicans stand, and if and when the court makes a final decision, I expect everyone will be more definitive, he said. But I don't think it's much more of a secret where Senator Republicans stand on the issue. Majority Leader Chuck U. Schumer, who, with the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, called the decision an abomination and will call a vote on Wednesday to codify Roe v. Wade into federal law, and will lose. And I'd be willing to bet if they got a filibuster-proof majority in the House, then they wouldn't call it to vote. Actually, they might, because they might have to. Now that this is out, they might be pressured into it. That actually might happen. But this is snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Like, you're sitting here right now, McConnell, poised to have a landslide wipeout in the House based on the economy. To have a landslide wipeout in the Senate based on foreign diplomacy. And the one thing that could get every progressive to go out there, not only go to the polls themselves, but to honkity honk and honk and honk and honk and honk, 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 as hard as they fucking can, is on the table. The one thing that can make apathetic progressives that don't typically vote in the midterm be out there for the midterm, and this is the road that you want to go down right now. Over something that, as the decision says, should have been a state's issue to begin with. Shouldn't be done on a federal level. And I'm not going to lie to you, depending on what the actual opinion that does come down from the Supreme Court says, not the draft, but depending on what the actual opinion is, I would not be surprised if the Senate went out and passed a bill like this and it got to the Supreme Court, and the same Supreme Court justices, the same 6, looked at this and said, well, that would actually probably be a 9-0 decision, looked at the law and said, we said states, fuck you. From the Hill, Hutchinson, national abortion ban floated by McConnell is inconsistent with what we've been fighting for. From Michael Schnell, Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson on Sunday said the national abortion ban floated by the Senate is inconsistent with what we've been fighting for. McConnell told USA Today in an interview published on Saturday that a national ban on abortion is possible as the country reacts to a draft majority opinion from the Supreme Court that shows the bench poised to overturn Roe v. Wade. Asked by the anchor, Martha Raddatz, on ABC's This Week if he would oppose a national ban on the medical procedure, Hutchinson said such a move may have some constitutional issues. I think it's inconsistent with what we've been fighting for 4 decades, which is that we wanted the Roe reversed and the authority to return to the states. And so as a matter of principle, that's where it should be, Hutchinson said. If you look at the constitutional or a national standard that goes against that the trust of the states having prerogative, and secondly, I think that there's some constitutional issue with the national standard, as well as to one is the authority of the Constitution to enact that, he said. Hutchinson said that returning abortion decisions back to the states, which would occur if Roe was overturned, makes sense under the Constitution. If the court reverses Roe, then they're saying the Constitution does not provide that, which returns to the states, and to me, that makes sense under the Constitution, the governor said. And that's where the vigorous debate is going to be. That's where we're going to face a lot of concerns of the compassion side, and states are going to make different determinations of it. But the people are going to express to their representative exactly the direction they want to go, and to me, that makes sense, and I think that makes sense under our Constitution, he added. That is a very, very long-winded way to say that we want to have the authority. We don't want to be under the federal thumb. We've done it for way too long. And there is a very federalist bent that's taking form in the Republican Party. The Democrat Party still wants top-down national control, one size fits all, one king, one ring to rule them all, etc. They still want that, and then it's very clear. They're not trying to hide that ball at all, that's what they want. But as far as Republicans go, in spite of the fact that their Christian nationalist ideas that they had not 9 years ago, not 10, 12 years ago, that they wanted top-down national Christian control of this country for a 1,000-year Reich, that's starting to go away. They're starting to see that their minds that they will not change no matter how many laws they pass. And those people should be able to go and find their own safe places in this country, far from that rule, which is what federalism was to begin with. The ability in an expansive nation for rules and laws, whereas they don't always fit in one place, but they'll fit very well in another place. And it's that authoritarian idea, which is where I left the left, honestly. Whereas it's our way or no way, and you don't get to go have a safe haven somewhere. That was the reason that I left the left. Anger as Louisiana abortion bill could see women charged with murder. Well, go somewhere else to go get your abortion, apparently. I think we've got video of this, actually. Oh, no volume, though.
And to boldly declare that the landmark case of Roe versus Wade should be ruled unconstitutional. Louisiana has already defied federal law by legalizing medical marijuana. If more than 15 states can defy federal government over marijuana, we can do it to save the lives of innocent babies. We cannot wait on the Supreme Court to confirm that innocent babies have the right to life in Louisiana. Louisiana law currently fails to provide equal protection for human life. Persons are deemed unworthy of legal protection for no other reason that they are not yet born.
We will ask for a call of a vote.
Representative Bakala? Yes. Representative Bryant? Representative Fontenot?
Yes.
Yes. Representative Garofalo? Yes. Representative Gudo? Yes. Representative LaFleur? No. Representative Marcel? Representative McCormick?
Yes.
Yes. Representative Hodges? Representative Muscarello? Yes. Representative Nelson? Representative Seabaugh?
Absolutely.
Yes. Representative Villio? Representative Marino? No. 7 yeas, 2 nays.
Thank you, Committee.
Thank you. House Bill 813 will be reported favorably.
Whitney, my sister.
Hey, look, we're going to talk about Amber Heard. I don't care at all about that case. The bill advanced by Louisiana lawmakers on Thursday that would abolish abortion in the state and classify it as murder has sparked outrage and anger among opponents who have taken to social media to criticize the new proposed legislation. Some supporters, however, say they were overjoyed at the prospect. Welcome to the 40s, ladies, where bodily autonomy and healthcare is criminal homicide, wrote author and opponent of the bill, Jamie Schler, on Twitter. Others went even further in time, comparing the proposal to living in the Old Testament. From what I understand from the Old Testament, that would actually be kind of based. But of course, it wouldn't fit with everybody else either. Under the proposed new bill, called House Bill 813, the abortion would be considered as homicide from fertilization and conception. The legislators' professed aim is to ensure the right to life and equal protection of the law to all unborn citizens from the moment of fertilization by protecting them by the same laws protecting other human beings. Any abortion would then see both the doctor and those assisting the person who had the abortion charged with a murder. Opponents of the bill have raised concerns that the law will also impact in vitro fertilization, forms of contraceptives like intrauterine birth control devices, and emergency contraception. I'm literally crying. This is so scary, said a user mentioning the ripple effect of the bill on Twitter. So they'll advance a bill in which a man who masturbates can be charged with involuntary manslaughter, wrote actor Ken Olin. Many criticized Republican lawmakers for being swift at curbing women's rights, but failing to put an equal effort into passing other urgent laws, such as improving child support and health services. Some mention the contradiction in a proposed law that protects unborn life while condemning anyone seeking abortion or assisting someone getting one to death or life imprisonment. The bill has the potential to criminalize miscarriages, too. I would love to see the text that made that a thing. Because that one I don't buy. The contraception, and I would actually have to see, and I have not read this bill. I will come out and say that. The contraception, because of the religious views of contraception, that I could buy. Miscarriage, I don't know. I think that is a stretch because that's out of a person's control. Half of us will suffer a miscarriage at some point in our lives. The Republican Party is essentially criminalizing womanhood, wrote a Twitter user. Burning at the stake can't be far behind, commented another. The words insane and unreal can be found over and over in the comments of people reacting to the news, despite the fact that many don't seem surprised after discovering only a few days ago that the Supreme Court is prepared to overturn Roe v. Wade. Well, you can keep seeing insane and unreal because a lot of these are just bots spamming these comments back out. It is an unfortunate side, and this is like when it comes with Plan B and things like that. It is an unfortunate side of this that I don't think that that's ever going to go away. Because the rich are still going to get it, and there are a lot of things that you have to outlaw outside of the medical Plan B pill in order to do this. And it's horrible that people are going to be put into position because they're told that they can go out and climb on top of whoever the hell that they want to with no consequences just because it feels good and it cures their creeping depression. There are better ways. There are definitely better ways to cure your depression than to go out and have a little orgasm every once in a while and wonder if you're going to wind up pregnant out of it or not. But on top of that, and like I said, the rich are still going to get what they need. They're either going to go out of state, they're going to stay out of state, they're going to pick up and move. Or there's the other side of that, penny royalty. That's one that's been brought up on numerous occasions because there are ways. There are herbal teas, there are herbal remedies and other concoctions that can cause this to happen without having to go out to a doctor to go back and do this. And if you're going to ban any form of contraception, that is a bigger undertaking than I think even the Louisiana legislature is ready to go back and try to jump up and do. And I still, to this day, wish that we could just change the society to look back and say, you know, maybe you should find a way, if you do have to have the sex, then to do it in a way that's not going to get somebody pregnant, rather than trying to rely on abortion the way that you do. But I don't want to do this through the government because, as just mentioned, with how absolutely much they would have to ban from the shelves to get something like this to go through, the government sucks at everything. They do. But again, on top of that, I would have to go and read the bill to see what is actually in this and what they are specifically trying to outlaw with this. From CNN. Some more Supreme Court stuff, and then we'll move on and talk about some Elon stuff. The Satanic Temple requests that Boston fly its flag after Supreme Court ruling. So, we read the ruling about the religious group. We talked about that last week. About the religious group that was denied their place on the community flagpole because reasons in Boston. Well, now the Satanic Temple wants their place too. From Jen Selva and Shauna Mizell. The Satanic Temple in Massachusetts is requesting that Boston fly its flag after the Supreme Court ruled this week that the city had violated its First Amendment rights of a Christian group when it denied them flying their flag outside of City Hall. According to a copy of the request tweeted by the Satanic Temple, the group is asking Boston to fly the flag for the Satanic Appreciation Week. Yeah, that's going to go over well in puritanical Boston. That still can't call the liquor store a liquor store, and still can't have the liquor store open on Sunday. On July 23rd to 29th, the Satanic Temple said its request in response to the recent ruling. CNN reached out to the Satanic Temple to go let them know about their support for killing babies. To comment, but did not immediately hear back. A spokesperson for Boston Mayor Michelle Wu's office said the office was carefully reviewing the court's decision and its recognition of city government's authority to operate similar programs, adding, as we consider the next steps, we will ensure that the future City of Boston programs were aligned with this decision. And translation, just like everything else with the Satanic Temple, the atheists are looking for another way to piss off the Christians. That's all this is. Realistically. Just like the name Satanic Temple. By the way, the Satanic Temple does not worship Satan. They are atheists. Semi-pagan, but they are atheists. They use the name Satanic Temple to go piss off the Christians. Which is the same reason they want to go and run this flag up the motherfucking flagpole. Congratulations, religious people. You did this one to yourselves. CNBC reports Elon Musk expected to serve as temporary Twitter CEO after deal closes. From Annie Palmer. Elon Musk is expected to serve as the temporary CEO of Twitter for a few months after he completes his $44 billion takeover of the social media company, sources told CNBC's David Faber. An SEC filing on Thursday revealed Musk's secured approximately $7.14 billion in equity commitments from friends and other investors to buy Twitter. Faber said Musk handpicked the investors. Commitments range from $1 billion from Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison to $5 million from Honeycomb Asset Management, which invested in SpaceX. Faber added that Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey may back it, and Musk is talking to him about the possibility of contributing shares immediately or before the closing of the merger. CEO Parag Agrawal has only led the company for a few months after assuming the helm from Dorsey last November. Until now, there hadn't been much discussion about whether Musk's takeover of the company would lead to a leadership shakeup. Last month, Reuters reported Musk had lined up new CEO for Twitter, citing a source familiar with the matter. Agrawal told employees during a company-wide town hall last month that the future of Twitter is uncertain under Musk, according to a separate Reuters report. Once the deal closes, we don't know which direction the platform will go, Agrawal reportedly said when asked whether the company may allow former U.S. President Trump to return to the platform. When Musk takes over, Trump was permanently suspended from Twitter last year. Musk's acquisition of Twitter comes at a key time for the company. Agrawal has said that he would focus on growing Twitter's daily active user base and bringing new products to its customers. In the company's latest earnings report, Twitter said it hit 229 million monetizable daily active users, a 15.9% increase from the same period last year. Musk, who is the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, has recently led presentations in front of investors where he gave financial projections based on analysis of Twitter, according to sources familiar with the situation who spoke with Faber. I mean, it's realistic. He at least wants to see where the company is going before he gets in. And, once he actually has the financial helm, somebody's got to go back and lead it. And clearly, Agrawal is not going to be it. Agrawal, I would assume, and I know what happens when you assume, I understand that, would be working in the worst interests for Musk, because I can't believe that he's really happy with the fact that this happened. So it makes sense. But we'll see what happens with that. From the Daily Mail, revealed Elon Musk plans to fire 1,000 Twitter staff, quintuple revenue, get 69 million users paying $3 a month, and cut reliance on advertising income. Presentation to investors shows. Well, I'm out. I'm going to tell you right now, if they're going to do $3 a month, fuck that. From James Gordon for DailyMail.com. Musk is planning to fire 1,000 staffers at Twitter as soon as his purchase of the social media platform is complete. It's believed that he will fire many of the firm's woke staff following the transfer of ownership, which will take around 6 months, after which Musk is likely to wield the axe. But within the next 3 years, Musk anticipates making thousands of new hires, swelling the ranks to around 11,000 employees, up from 7,500 currently. Much of the new talent is likely to be in the field of engineering. Numbers at the company would fluctuate, rising to 9,225 employees this year before falling to 8,332 in 2023, then adding a further 2,700 workers by 2025. Most of the jobs being shelved would occur during the takeover period, according to the pitch deck Musk presented this week to investors and seen by the New York Times, a former newspaper. On a company level, Musk has previously floated the idea of closing down the San Francisco headquarters in order to save money, and that board members may also not receive a salary, shaving off another $3 million in expenses. The changes Musk makes are part of his plan to increase Twitter's annual revenue by 5 times its current level to $26.4 billion by 2028, up from $5 billion last year. Advertising on the platform is set to fall to 45% of the total revenue under Musk, down from about 90% in 2020. By 2028, he plans for ads to generate $12 billion in revenue in 2028, while subscriptions are expected to pull another $10 billion, according to the report. Musk is said to favor a subscription-based model over advertiser funding, as it would make Twitter less beholden to advertiser pressure. He even suggested users could pay with crypto, including joke currency Doge, which Musk has long had an affection for. Other revenue would come from businesses such as data licensing. Musk has also tweeted about potentially monetizing tweets, although he has not provided specific details. Musk also plans to see Twitter's cash flow rise to $3.2 billion in 2025 and $9.4 billion in 2028. I both like and dislike this. Now, as far as the subscription model goes, I don't like the idea of having to pay to go back and use something like this, to be able to pay to have free speech. And that's a big problem for me. Because Musk went into this saying this is the de facto town square and people should be able to participate. That's where I start to have a problem with this, because if you have to pay for admission to the de facto town square, it's not the de facto town square. Yes, I understand that it's a small fee. It's a very small fee, but you do leave other people out at that point. People who don't have a Doge or an electronic banking system that they can go back and just throw on there and use. And people still want to be able to be heard. Now, what this will do, and one of the things that I do enjoy about this, is this will cut down on the botting. Because if a person can come back out and just start generating 1 million fake accounts for free, then it's just their time investment to go back out and make the accounts and set them back out on dummy generated emails. I'm sure there's a computer algorithm to go back and do that, to go back out and, set all the bots to make the same comment over and over again on something. And then yes, going through and having the $3 per account access fee. Now, you're still going to get your big bot farms that are going to go back and do this, but this is easier on the engineers to go back and say, hey, these $3 million worth of payments all came from the same place. I still don't like the idea of paying for the town square, but I moved on to the fence because I know what it would do to the botting side of it. Essentially. And then if you have the monetized tweets thing on top of that too, that does open the opportunity for people to offset their costs and make money off the fact that they monetize their tweets. I don't know. I'm going to lean towards the make the town square freer argument. But I'm officially at a point where I understand both sides. From the New York Post. Elon is sued by a shareholder over the $44 billion takeover. Coming to New York Post via Reuters. Elon and Twitter were sued on Friday from a Florida pension fund seeking to stop Musk from quickly completing his planned $44 billion takeover of the social media company. Okay. Pension fund? Take the cash and go buy a different stock. In a complaint filed in Delaware Chancery Court, the Orlando Pension Fund, a police pension fund, said that under Delaware law, Musk cannot complete the takeover until at least 2025 unless holders of 2/3 of shares not owned by him approved. The lawsuit said Musk became an interested stockholder after taking more than 9% Twitter's stake, requiring the delay. Musk also owns electric car company Tesla and is the world's richest person according to Forbes. Twitter and its board, including Chief Executive Officer Parag Agrawal, are also defendants. The lawsuit seeks to delay the merger's closing until at least 2025, declare that Twitter directors breached their fiduciary duties, and recoup legal fees and costs. Dude, that is the quickest way to turn around and get countersued. Because there are a lot of people out there who stand to make a buttload of money off of this. And by the way, pension funds, so do you. You will be getting the cash off of this. Go buy another stock. But I'm pretty positive that's not the reason they're trying to stop this. They're trying to stop this because they're police, which means that they hate you. They don't want you to be able to have free speech. From the Daily Wire, Elon Musk warns that he may die under mysterious circumstances after a threat from a Russian official. From Ryan Saavedra. Musk warned on Sunday that he may die under mysterious circumstances after a Russian politician threatened him for supplying equipment to Ukraine that's being used to fight the Russian military. Musk supplied Starlink terminals from one of his companies, SpaceX, that are being used to communicate and to operate drones. Musk posted a screenshot of a translated message that says that he says Dmitry Rogozin, in Moscow space chief, sent to Russian media. From testimony of captured commander of 36th Marine Brigade of Armed Forces of Ukraine, Colonel Dmitry Kormankov, it turns out that internet terminals of Elon Musk's Starlink satellite company were delivered to militants of Nazi Azov Battalion and the Ukrainian Marines in Mariupol by military helicopters, the message states. According to information, if delivery of Starlink equipment was carried out by Pentagon. Elon Musk thus is involved in supplying fascist forces in Ukraine with military communication equipment, the message continued, and for this, Elon, you'll be held accountable like adult, no matter how much you play fool. And Elon tweets back with this and says, the word Nazi doesn't mean what he seems to think it does. If I die under mysterious circumstances, it's been nice knowing you. Well, I don't think they're going to do shit. But we'll watch with eager ears and see what's going on with that. From the Hill. Some election news. We're flying through the rest of this, I think. Marjorie Taylor Greene is qualified for re-election, says a judge. From Kate Brumback of the Associated Press. Changing America! Can you tell the difference between this plant-based egg and a traditional chicken egg? I don't care. I don't want to. I want to eat the egg. A judge in Georgia on Friday found that Marjorie Taylor Greene can run for re-election, rejecting arguments from a group of voters that had challenged her eligibility over allegations that she engaged in insurrection. But the decision will ultimately be up to Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. Admin law judge Charles Boudreau announced this decision after a day-long hearing in April that included arguments from lawyers for the voters and for Greene, as well as extensive questioning of Greene herself. State law says Boudreau must submit his findings to Raffensperger, who has to decide whether Greene should be removed from the ballot. The challenge to Greene's eligibility was filed by voters who alleged that the GOP congresswoman played a significant role in the January 6, 2021 riot that disrupted Congress's certification of the presidential election victory that puts her in violation of a seldom invoked part of the 14th Amendment having to do with insurrection and makes her ineligible to run for re-election, they argue. No, that's not what they were trying to do. And you know it over at the Hill. The judge knew it. The lawyer knew it. And everybody knew it. This was going to go in Marjorie Taylor Greene's favor, and she calls herself acquitted because she's a moron. But she's the moron that the people of Georgia 14 want. I can sit here in this chair and criticize Marjorie Taylor Greene up and down and left and right. I'm very good at it. Because I think that she's a Democrat plant. I think she says the right thing too perfectly and too eloquently at too much of the perfect time too often to believe that her motives are pure. Let's put it that way. I can sit here and criticize her, tell her that she should shut up, tell her that she should stop talking, left and right and center. But the decision ultimately comes down to the people of Georgia 14. They get to make the decision of who's on the ballot. And honestly, I would think that that's not even in Brad Raffensperger's hands, although he's got to go file the paperwork for it. The people of Georgia 14 clearly want her to run. clearly want to put her on the ballot and put her up against Marcus Flowers. They clearly want this. And that should be their decision. It's their representative. It's not my representative. It's not Raffensperger's representative. Fuck, he lives in Savannah. It's not Biden's representative. It's not Pelosi's representative. That is the representative of the people of Rome, Georgia, and the surrounding communities. That's who should get a say in who the Republican nominee is on the ticket. Republicans of Rome, Georgia. If that's who you want, well, I can criticize you. Godspeed. Enjoy the sound bites, but ultimately that is your decision. But they weren't looking to get her off the ballot or anything else like that. They were looking for sound bites. They were looking for little clips that they can play during the campaign ads and say, and they're looking to do this around the country too. If you support generic Republican candidate in your district, you're really supporting Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was evil and fomented an insurrection and then couldn't remember it. You're going to see at least one of those in your district, no matter how red your district is this election cycle. I promise you. As the National Democratic Party tries to tie anybody, no matter how neocon they are, with an R next to their name, to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Which is part of the reason I think that she's planted there. More election news from Reuters. U.S. Appeals Court reinstates Florida voting limits that judge had deemed discriminatory. From Joseph X. A federal appeals court on Friday reinstated Florida's new Republican-backed voting restrictions, overruling a judge's decision that several provisions, such as limits on ballot drop boxes, were racially discriminatory. U.S. Judge Mark Walker in Tallahassee had struck down the bulk of the law in March, finding that lawmakers had designed the legislation to be intentionally discriminatory against black voters. He also ordered the states to seek court approval to make any changes to the provision in question for the next 10 years. But a 3-judge panel in the 11th U.S. Circuit granted the state's request to block his decision, noting that Florida's primary election takes place in August, too soon, the judges said, allowing for changes to election rules. Friday's order reinstates new restrictions on the use of drop boxes and on third-party organizations' ability to collect voter registration forms. In addition, the law includes a provision that bans groups from offering food and water and other aid to people waiting in line to vote, as long as they're within a certain distance of the polling place, because you're not allowed to sloganeer within a certain distance of the polling place. See, Reuters won't tell you that. Ron DeSantis, who's running for re-election, is considered the top Republican contender for 2024, signed a bill into law last year that passed the Republican majority legislature. The bill was among dozens of new voting restrictions that Republican-controlled states have approved in the wake of former President Trump's false claims in 2020. It's Reuters. They had to put that in there. The panel also faulted Walter's analysis of what it called Florida's grotesque history of racial discrimination, saying he reached too far back in time to justify his rationale. The judges on the 11th Circuit were all appointed by Trump, while Walker was named to the bench by Barack Obama. Where is the 11th Circuit? I don't even know. That is in Atlanta, so, and that covers Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. it does seem that in both cases this went judge shopping. I do anticipate that Florida Democrats are going to try to now bring this out to the Supreme Court. But unfortunately for Orlando Democrats, for Florida Democrats, this is going to take, I don't think they're going to be able to get a decision before the Supreme Court before this election. So I think this is going to, at least for 2022, this is going to be where the buck stops. Now, to see a challenge to this before the presidential election, maybe. But they're only doing it because of the big lie. Sonny Hostin had some stuff to say. Let's listen to what Sonny Hostin had to say.
Chris Cuomo, I know this may be a novel point, a novel idea for somebody who's, a supporter of Trump, but there are people who are capable of being related and not having ethical interests.
There's many things that I don't stand by that Trump did. Trump has done things that are racist. I'm a black woman first, so always understand that. But I do say that I have many conservative values that I will talk to you about. And so if you look at your network that you're standing behind, yes, and when you look at your network that you're standing behind, you're saying that you look at Chris Cuomo.
I feel like that's an oxymoron, a black Republican.
You feel like it's an oxymoron?
I do.
Why? Your friend right here is a Republican.
We had this conversation many times.
You do, and you say you feel like it's an oxymoron that you're Catholic, but you also are pro-life.
I don't understand either.
No, you don't understand yourself. Then you have disagreements.
I understand myself. I don't understand either of
this. But it's not a personal conversation. Yeah. We're having a personal conversation about CNN
I don't
and how
black
things can get
Republicans,
leaked.
and I don't understand Latino Republicans.
Well, today this is not about me, and it's not about you. It's about celebrating Corinne Jean-Pierre
and I think we should, and we can agree on that.
And we will be right back.
Yes, because these people, by the way, have to be in a lockstep. They have to do exactly what you tell them to, otherwise they're not black or they're not Latino. Just ask our current Catholic president. Oh wait, no, that's wrong. Because that's not what he said. It's not that if you're not going to vote for Biden, you're not black. It's if you don't know whether you're for me or for the other guy, then you ain't black, man. Christine Blasey Ford is fucking trending. Why? Apparently somebody hacked Christine Blasey Ford. Jeez. All right, from the New York Post. Biden likely to avoid IRS audit that could have revealed that he made money from Hunter's deals. That sounds to me, considering the IRS is an executive branch department that is under the purview of Mr. Biden himself. That seems like a conflict of interest to me. Wouldn't you think so? From Stephen Nelson. President Biden is likely to avoid an audit that could reveal whether he made money from his son Hunter's overseas business dealings because the Internal Revenue Service has rejected a whistleblower complaint that alleges he owes at least $127,000 in taxes, the Post has learned. Of course he's going to avoid the audit because he's Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. The IRS allows people to inform on fellow taxpayers and win a slice of the proceeds, which should be a crime in and of itself, prompting Chris Jacobs, a former Republican staffer on Capitol Hill, to submit complaints against Biden and his accountant, though he said that he didn't want any financial reward. Jacobs shared with the Post a reply from the IRS titled Denial that explained that the government didn't use his information. Tax law expert Bob Willens, who teaches at the Columbia University's Business School, said the rejection means Biden is likely to run out a 3-year statute of limitations, meaning Republican claims that Biden owes up to $500,000 in taxes are unlikely to be resolved. It looks like the post of question of whether the president underpaid his Medicare taxes will never be aired. Of course it's not. Willens told the Post. And we're never also, by the way, going to have to answer to the $5.7 million of unexplained income that we talked about last week. Yes, Fanning, that's actually absolutely correct. That's a good point. Biden's militarizing the government against political enemies. You and I wouldn't get out of an audit. And adding more IRS staff, but holds himself to a lower standard. It's weird that for 4 years, for 5 years, we heard, even still now today, we hear, the tax returns, why won't Trump release his tax returns? I know we actually have the tax returns. There's unexplained income there. The audit isn't going to happen. And nobody's saying a goddamn word about this. From CNN. Some vaccine news for you guys. FDA puts strict limits on Johnson & Johnson Pinko-Pox vaccine. The US FDA announced Thursday it's limiting the emergency use authorization of the Johnson & Johnson/Janssen COVID-19 vaccine to people 18 and older for whom other vaccines aren't appropriate or accessible, and those who opt for Johnson & Johnson because they would otherwise not get vaccinated. The FDA said in a statement that the change is being made because of the risk of a rare and dangerous clotting condition called thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome after receiving the vaccine. We've been closely monitoring the Janssen Pinko-Pox vaccine and occurrence of the TTS following its administration and have updated use of information from our safety surveillance system to revise the EUA. Dr. Peter Marks, director of the FDA Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, said in the statement. We recognize the Janssen vaccine still has a role in the global current pandemic response in the U.S. and across the global community. Today's action demonstrates the robustness of our safety surveillance systems and our commitment to ensuring the science, trademark, and data, restricted, copyright, guide our actions. The agency confirmed to CNN that the updated authorization also applies to booster doses. The FDA says it has determined that the benefits of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine outweigh the risks. For certain people, example of people who may still get the vaccine include those who have severe allergic reaction to mRNA, such as those from Pfizer and BioNTech or Moderna. Those with personal concerns about the mRNA vaccines who would remain unvaccinated without the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, or those with limited access to mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. Still not getting it. But again, if you want it, it's your choice. As of Thursday, with more than 18.7 million doses of the vaccine being administered in the U.S., according to the U.S. CDC, of those who are considered fully vaccinated, 7.7% got this vaccine. I think we're done with the vaccine thing. I really do. But it's weird. A Pinko-Pox vaccine is giving people heart condition. But not the Pfizer. That one's perfectly acceptable and fine. And don't look over here. Let's skip this one. This is a review. Same stuff. This one I have been trying to get to since the middle of last week. Former Defense Secretary Mark Esper says Trump wanted to shoot demonstrators protesting George Floyd's death, according to a book that he wants to sell. Don't buy it. From John L. Dorman. Former President Trump wanted to shoot demonstrators protesting the May 2020 police killing of St. George, hallowed be his name, the patron saint of fentanyl, according to a forthcoming book written by former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, who desperately wants to sell this book, so he wants you to be able to see what's in there and the outrage. In June 2020, Trump became increasingly frustrated with the fury ignited by the death of Floyd while in custody of Minneapolis police officer. Esper wrote in a book, A Sacred Oath, Memoirs of a Secretary of Defense During Extraordinary Times, which is slated for release on May 10th, tomorrow. Excerpts from the book regarding Trump's plea to get a handle on the increasingly volatile situation were first reported by Axios on Monday. Can you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something, Trump reportedly asked of the protesters, according to Esper. Citation needed, please. At that particular moment, according to the excerpt, Esper said it felt surreal sitting in front of the Resolute desk inside the Oval Office with the idea weighing heavily in the air and the president's red-faced, no, that was just a self-tanner, and complaining loudly about the protests underway in Washington, D.C. He continued, the good news, this wasn't a difficult decision. The bad news, I had to figure out a way to walk Trump back without creating the mess I was trying to avoid. No, we don't shoot protesters in the leg, or anywhere, if they're left-wing protesters protesting for BLM. You only shoot protesters if they're evil MAGA people. So, this is another book that nobody's going to buy. Actually, no, they're probably going to go buy this and put it on the shelves. Probably not read it, but desperately come out and say, see, Trump wanted to shoot people in the leg. From CNN. Thank you to Golden Leaf for putting this one into the Discord because we wanted to go over this one. Tulsa Race Massacre Reparations lawsuit survives motion to deny and will move forward, judge rules. From Amir Vera, Omar Jimenez, Ashley Calo, and Lionel Mendez. The plaintiff's lawsuit seeking reparations for the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre celebrated a judge's ruling on Monday when she allowed their case to move forward after a defendant sought a motion to dismiss the case. Carolyn Wall said the motion to dismiss was granted in part and denied in part, which essentially allows the case to proceed, but it's unclear what will happen next, including details on a potential trial, according to Michael Swartz, one of the attorneys for the plaintiffs. The plaintiff's attorneys pleaded Monday afternoon for the judge to allow the case to move forward so the survivors and descendants of victims of the massacre could have their day in court, potentially their last chance to get some semblance of justice. A packed courtroom in Tulsa erupted in cheers and applause at the judge's ruling, including the 3 remaining survivors who were all over 100 years old and were in the courtroom for hours-long hearings. I've never seen nothing like this happen, said Hughes Van Ellis, a 101-year-old survivor of the massacre who told CNN he never lost hope. That means it's going to change things. It's going to make people think. It's going to change. It's going to be better for everybody, said Ellis, who also goes by Uncle Red. The lawsuit was filed March 2021 and looks to not only set the record straight on what took place between May 31st and June 1st, but also create a special fund for the survivors and descendants of the massacre that left at least 300 black people dead and the once booming neighborhood of Greenwood destroyed. On top of that, attorneys for the plaintiffs are racing against the clock. 3 of their clients are more than 100 years old, including the 101-year-old Ellis, as well as Viola Fletcher and Leslie Benningfield Randall, who are both 107. Demario Solomon Simmons, an attorney for the plaintiffs, told CNN Monday he was involved in earlier litigation for the massacre in early 2000s with Charles J. Ogletree and Johnny Cochran. Today's victory, he said, followed a long string of defeats. I guess the only thing that I question here is who is paying this out? Is this the defendants? The lawsuit names 11 plaintiffs, including survivors and relatives of survivors. 7 total defendants are named, including the City of Tulsa, Oklahoma Military Department, and the Tulsa Development Authority. So this looks like they are suing the government for this one. Well, good. I hope they win. From the Daily Wire. Why isn't he saying, we know where those 42 are? They're in jail. Ducey spars with the red-haired bobblehead over suspected terrorists in the U.S. Today, I believe, is red-haired bobblehead's last day in the press office. From Virginia Kruta. Fox News White House correspondent Peter Ducey challenged red-haired bobblehead over the 42 suspected terrorists who may have been released into the U.S. after illegally crossing the southern U.S. border. The information came to light during a hearing late last week when Jim Jordan pressed Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on the status of 42 people from the terror watch list or the no-fly list who had been apprehended at the border. Let's listen.
Secretary, have any of the 42 illegal migrants on the terrorist watch list or no-fly list encountered on our southwest border been released into the United States?
Ranking Member Jordan, as I mentioned before, I will provide that data to you with respect to the disposition of each one. I do not know the answer to your question.
The Secretary of Homeland Security does not know the answer to the status of 42 individuals who came to our southern border illegally, are on the no-fly list and the terrorist watch list. You do not know of whether they have been released or not into the country. That's your testimony.
Ranking Member Jordan, as I've said before, I will provide you the data. I
Go back to the general. That's amazing.
Mr. Secretary.
After being questioned by Jordan on the 42 people on the watch list apprehended, Mayorkas finally admits the individuals are in our country.
Do you have that data now?
Oh, so yes, and I did not want to misspeak in response to Ranking Member Jordan's question, because we know where those 42 individuals are on the TSDB, the terrorist screening database. Let me share with you what happens. They can be removed. They can be placed into custody for criminal prosecution. They could be cooperating in a law enforcement investigation, and I don't intend to provide that data publicly if it's law enforcement sensitive, but we know where those 42 are, and I did not want to speak with respect to the disposition of each and every one of them, but we know where they are, and we've got our hands on it.
Okay,
and when I say we,
into the United States,
no, not necessarily. If they are,
I heard the three things, but I guess from somebody sitting at home, are they worried about the 42 on the terror watch list?
They shouldn't be worried about the 42. We've got a handle on it, and when I say we, Brett, it's not the Department of Homeland Security alone. It's the Federal Bureau of Investigation. It's our entire enforcement and intelligence enterprise.
Yeah, but it would be a lot easier to not worry about them if they weren't in this country. Ducey pressed Psaki on the matter during Monday's briefing, asking why the person charged with protecting the U.S., presumably by controlling who was and was not released into the interior of the country, couldn't say exactly where they were.
So the DHS secretary is now talking about people on the terrorist watch list crossing the border into the U.S., and he says, we know where those 42 are. Why isn't he saying, we know where those 42 are, they're in jail?
Well, Peter, I would really point you to the Department of Homeland Security to get more follow-up details on his comments. I know he's spoken extensively at a range of hearings and obviously on a range of Sunday shows yesterday, including on Fox, I believe.
Well, then what is the president's priority? Would it be stopping potential terrorist attacks or letting these migrants come in?
Well, again, I think as we noted just a couple of weeks ago when there was reporting about the number of individuals who are on the watch list being stopped at the border, that was the Border Patrol doing their jobs. That was the system working. And certainly part of the role of the Department of Homeland Security is to keep our country safe, keep the American people safe. And I think that's an indication of Secretary Mayorkas' work to do exactly that.
And one more.
But so if it takes 19 people to carry out the September 11th attacks, what do you guys think 42 people on a terrorist watch list might be capable of?
Again, Peter, the number one job of the President of the United States, the Vice President, and certainly the Secretary of Homeland Security is to keep the American people safe. And I think a lot of this reporting you're referencing is an indication that they're doing their jobs and doing exactly that.
So they're here. Nobody knows where they are, and I don't think anybody really cares, except for the American people, of course. From the New York Post. Biden's new press secretary sparks conflict of interest concerns over a relationship with CNN's Suzanne Malveaux. From Lee Brown. President Biden's trailblazing pick for his new press secretary is already being accused of creating a troubling conflict of interest because of her long-term relationship with star CNN reporter Suzanne Malveaux. Well, she was the deputy press secretary, and by the way, I don't think that it's right that she is in this position. But guys, you should have found this months ago. Let's be realistic here. Karine Jean-Pierre, who next Friday will be both the first black and first openly gay person to hold the key White House post, lives with the network's national correspondents in Washington, D.C. with their 7-year-old daughter. The Haitian-born press pick gushed about her relationship with Malveaux in Jean-Pierre's 2019 memoir, Moving Forward. Yeah, you should have figured this one out a year ago. Most of all, I want to say that every word of the book was written with love for my partner, Suzanne Malveaux, and our daughter, Soleil Malveaux Jean-Pierre. You are my life, she wrote, also thanking the Malveaux family. While Jean-Pierre's groundbreaking pick for the White House post was widely celebrated, it also left some questioning her and Malveau's impartiality. CNN recent scandals have included Now Axed host Chris Cuomo's behind-the-scenes meddling in brother and then Governor Andrew Cuomo's sex scandals. It also comes after her soon-to-be predecessor, red-haired bobblehead, sparked similar conflicts of interest concerns for keeping the top job for 6 weeks after it was widely reported she had been hired by left-leaning network MSDNC. Soon after Jean-Pierre's new gig was announced, Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of the right-wing news outlet Breitbart, tweeted, "This is one of many examples of the corporate media literally in bed with the government that it covers." Yeah, and you see, the problem with that is McEnany, she's married to, she's regular long-term married. Let's do an example. Let's say evil Donald Trump picked a new press secretary, Tomi Lahren. She's not married yet. That'd be a good one to say. Tomi Lahren goes out in the midst of things and gets married. She's already a Fox News person, so she already knows everyone over there. Who's unmarried at Fox News? I don't know. Let's not even just say somebody out there. Some technical producer staffer at Fox News. She goes out and gets married to that. Let's actually make this out to be a realistic scenario of what the left would freak out about. So some low-level camera or boom operator at Fox News decides that Tomi Lahren is the one for him. I don't know what the fuck would be wrong with them, but decides that Tomi Lahren is the one for him. They run out. They go get hitched. $1 billion ordeal all over the front of People magazine. And now Tomi Lahren is the press secretary for Grover Cleveland's second-term Trump. Every major network would be melting the ever-loving fuck down, screaming about decorum and how bad this is and how horrible this is for the fabric of this country and what are we going to do and how are we going to do this. That would be the end of the press as we know it. But hey, because it's CNN and the first openly black, lesbian press secretary in history. We didn't see anything, did you? From CNN. Georgia High School Association uses new law to implement anti-trans sports ban. From Chuck Johnston and Devon Cole. Transgender high school students in Georgia were banned Wednesday from competing on sports teams consistent with their gender identities after the state school association used a controversial new law to implement the restriction. Holy crap, it's 10 already. That's probably why my phone's buzzing all over the place, because Daily Ignoramus is on. Brian Kemp signed a bill into law last week giving the Georgia High School Association the authority to enact such a ban. Departure from similar bans in other states that came directly from their legislatures. The association, which oversees most public schools and some private schools in the state, voted unanimously to do just that on Wednesday, amending bylaws to say a student's sex is determined by what is listed on their birth certificate. Following my signature on HB 1084, Georgia High School Association today upvoted to protect fairness in schools by unanimously approving their youth to compete according to the sex determined on his or her birth certificate. I'm proud to have championed their efforts in Georgia, Kemp tweeted. Again, the thing is I don't necessarily care about what's going on with the schools and everything. The problem that I have is the fact that these are mediocre. It's only ever going one direction, first and foremost. And these are mediocre athletes in the men's division who are smashing records in the women's division. Constantly, over and over again. And yes, denying scholarships to people who otherwise would have had great opportunities coming off of them. So, and yes, they're going to cry foul because they're not playing fair with the transgenders. But good on that. Just a couple more. I might wait on the CNN one just because I think that's going to take a bigger dig. And we got to get over to Daily Ignoramus. From the Blaze, Arab Americans accuse Chicago mayor of racism over city's reaction to a brutal murder caught on video at a gas station. So yeah, we'll hold off on this one about the corrections officer because I want to dig more into this than what we have time for. So stick around for these last couple, though we'll do rule of acquisition, head out of here for the day. Let's see, from Carlos Garcia. Arab Americans are accusing Mayor Lightfoot, a Democrat, of targeting their shops after a brutal murder caught on a video at a gas station. Surveillance video shows a man with a rifle chasing another man on Tuesday before the victim trips and falls on the ground. The gunman shoots him at least 5 times at point-blank range and runs away on foot. The victim was taken to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. The gas station was ordered to be shut down by officials, and an Arab American organization says it isn't the first time that they have been scapegoated by Lightfoot. Suhail Asaf, the co-owner of the gas station, told WBBM-TV that they shut down the business for 2 days to accommodate the police investigation. Before they were shut down entirely, he argued that the victim wasn't even on his property when the assailant chased him into the gas station. You have to ask for a hearing, and it could take them 5 days for a hearing, said Ahmad Moshin, another co-owner of the gas station. I have employees that want to come back. I have no answer for them. The order shutting down the business blamed the violent offense, but the American Arab Chamber of Commerce has accused Lightfoot of blaming Arab-owned stores for violence unfairly. Let's hold off on the video of that. See, the thing of this is, though, I can understand where the prosecutor's office wants to be able to go in and do the investigation without tampering of evidence. Again, if it didn't start on their property, but it seems to have ended on their property, so I can actually come back and say that. Like if they've got to get rifling or they've got to get camera angles or fingerprints or anything else like that. Anything that they can get out of that, I could come out and say, yeah, no, this actually is understandable. And if it was a private investigator, I would say the same thing. So I can't believe I've got to say this. I've got to side with Lightfoot on this one. If they are going to go back and investigate a murder and try to find who did it, they don't want the evidence tampered with. They don't want people in there walking around as much as they can keep people off of there. They don't want people in there walking around tampering with things. But the other side of that is they should be working on getting this as quickly as humanly possible so that they aren't stopping private business, private commerce. So there should be a timetable here for you as well. Like, hey, we're going to go over every inch of your store with a fine-tooth comb until we find any sort of evidence. But if they're not done in 4 days, we're kicking them the fuck out of there because we're not going to find anything else. So I think both sides are kind of in the wrong on this one, now that I think over this a little bit more clearly. All right, and then we've got 3 from Twitter, and we'll save this one for Casey White and Vicky White until tomorrow. But Bernie Sanders has something to say about student debt, of course. And then 2 libs of TikTok, because we love libs of TikTok around here. Bernie Sanders, cancel student debt. All of it.
Mr. President, do the right thing. Cancel all student debt in this country. All over this country, you have millions of young people like yourselves who are graduating college, $50,000, $100,000 in debt. If you go to graduate school, I've talked to doctors graduating medical school. You know what the debt is? $500,000 in debt. And then when you get this debt, it means that in some cases you can't go out and rent a decent apartment because you're busy paying off your debt.
Because you're not supposed to own anything.
Maybe you want to have kids. You can't even afford to have children. So you have over $1.8 trillion in debt on a lot of folks who just cannot afford to continue to pay that. Now, what we do in this country over the last many years is very interesting. Some of you may remember way back in 2008 when the crooks on Wall Street destroyed the economy through illegal activity. You know what the United States Congress did? Bailed them out. As we speak, literally this week, next week, there'll be a bill coming to the floor of the U.S. Senate, which will provide $10 billion to Jeff Bezos for his space company. So I kind of think if we could bail out banks that destroy the economy because of their illegal activity, if we can give Mr. Bezos $10 billion, you know what we can do? We can cancel all student debt in America.
Again, the problem comes on the fact of where does that money come from? You can't just print debt. You can't just snap your fingers and make it disappear. It's got to get written off somewhere, and that is income to these people who don't realize the fact that once they're $40,000, $50,000 in income in 1 year, they have to pay the taxes on that. The IRS will come from them. And Bernie Sanders doesn't care. He just wants to go out and make sound bites and make people forget about the fact that, hey, we were promised student loan debt forgiveness, and it's still here. All right. And then a pair of libs of TikToks, then we'll do a rule of acquisition and head out of here for the morning, which is good because I'm starving. This crazy bitch. A lot of them are queer because I am queer, says 4th grade teacher.
My kids from last year are now in 5th grade, and they come visit me almost every day after school. And a lot of them are queer because I am queer, and they figured it out, and so I've become their safe space. And today they found my Guess Who, and they started playing Guess Who, but they didn't play it the normal way. How did they play it? They used things like, this person looks like a lesbian baddie who's gonna come over and make you dinner. Well, which one of these characters is a lesbian baddie that's gonna come over and make you dinner? Oh, Olivia is? Oh, great. Which character just looks gay? Well, meet Mike. These kids, I'm so happy that they are figuring out who they are and that they're happy with who they are and that they found a safe place. But man, I could never imagine being in 5th grade saying these things out loud, even though I know they're all okay. I grew up super religious where nothing was okay. And so seeing this happen, I'm like, ah! But I'm also like, yay! But ah! My kids from last year are now in 5th grade and they come.
Okay, first and foremost, to this woman's doctor, to Miss Hall's doctor, could I suggest that you go and turn down her mood elevators just a little bit? Because I think you've given her too powerful of a dose. As far as the Guess Who things, it's not, this person looks like a lesbian who might bring you dinner. Dude, I'm sorry, that's not a compliment. Coming out of a 5th grader, that is a 5th grade edgelord who just figured out what the word lesbian was. And now wants to see how many times he can get away with saying it before he gets sent to the principal's office. So it's the same thing with, hey, this person just looks gay. I say shit like that to John and the Porch Boys all the time. And while it's in jest, it's not a matter of that John actually looks gay. It's I mean, if I look like that, I would stay out of the red light district. But it's something that gets done, again, in edgelord fashion between friends. This is not what you think it is. Alright, and the last one. Because I am starting back on the keto diet today, let's listen to what a licensed therapist explains about why losing weight is fat-phobic.
So I figured that this question would probably come up sometime soon, just because of the video and the topics that I cover. But let's break this one down. So intentional weight loss, so you purposely saying, I want to lose 20 pounds, is fat phobic. And you might be like, what? Oh my goodness. I'm not trying to be fat phobic, but you are. You're being fat phobic to yourself. Why do you want to lose 20 pounds? It's probably to fit into something smaller. It's probably so people treat you better. It's probably for all the reasons that fat folks are shamed simply for being fat. So by continuing to perpetuate that, right, seeking intentional weight loss, we are contributing to our fat phobic society. So that's why intentional weight loss is fat phobic. So I figured that this question would probably come up.
Yes, by the way, I am fat phobic. I look down at myself and I say, geez, I can't fit in my pants anymore. I might have to go spend money and go buy a new wardrobe. I get heartburn every time I try to go to sleep. I feel winded after I go up a set of stairs. Yes, of course I am. Why do I want to lose 20 pounds? Because I want to be able to climb easily up into a trailer that I have to climb up into every day. And yes, I don't want to go and buy a new suit. Well, I like buying new suits, but it's a different side of things. I do enjoy buying new suits. But I don't want to have to do it because I don't fit into the old ones. I want to do it because they look cool. Rip AP, that's funny. They're gonna still read the fucking AP, and they're still gonna read into its left-wing bias, but yes, I do. And I actually 226 is what I weighed in at yesterday. I do want to get to probably mid 180s. I know that's extremely thin for my height, but I want to get down to that point. Because I have other jeans that I can go and slip into at that point. But it's another one of those things going right back to what we started with when we talked about the abortion thing. It's the fact that they want to do whatever makes them feel good with no consequences. And the consequences that this woman is bringing forward is the fact that, hey, if you are a fat fuck, you might get treated like crap. People might look down at you. They might not want to go out with you as much. They might not want to do this, that, or the next thing. And that's what I have to say at that. All right, let's finish out here with the Ferengi rules of acquisition. And let's head out of here for the day. Where did we leave off last week? I know I always do long Monday shows, so I believe we skipped 68th, 69th. 74th we did last week. Knowledge equals profit. From the Inside Man Voyager episode, where they found the Ferengi from Next Generation in the Delta Quadrant. So let's move on into the 75th rule of acquisition. Home is where the heart is, but the stars are made of latinum. This is something that I really wish that my generation would get to know a little bit better, and the generations that follow as well. Now, there's been a concerted effort for people to never ever leave their hometowns. I mean, I live in Redacted, and I look around, and most of the people that are here, most of the people around me, are from here. They've never left here. They don't move into this place. There are a couple of people that have, but for the most part, unless it's for a job, they don't move into this place. They just, It's a towny town. It is. That's one of the little bit of disdain that I have for this place. And that's a very, very small amount of disdain because I really like the town that I live in a lot. But there is that thing, like people talk about this. I've tried to talk a friend of mine into moving out of Massachusetts and coming out here, setting up her business here, because I think that it would be a much friendlier business climate for her here than to live in Massachusetts. And me, I live 4 hours away from where I grew up. My sister will never leave there. Home is where the heart is, and I do go back to my parents' house every chance that I can. With the gas prices being where they are, it's not as often as it was like a year before. But I go back there every chance that I can because, you want to be around there. You do want to see, as much as I dislike where I grew up, you do still want to see some of the familiar side of things, but the stars are made of platinum, which is their tradable currency in the Star Trek universe. There are opportunities out there to go out to start a new business, to work for another existing business, to find better jobs, to find better opportunity. Yes, I got my ass kicked when I lived in Kenosha, financially and societally, but I am glad for the risk. Yes, I got my ass kicked financially and societally when I lived in Boston. But I'm thankful and grateful for the opportunity because without that, where would I be? With no idea how progressive policies ruin a cost of living in a particular area. And missing a lot of the people that I found important in my life for a very long time. And a lot of experiences I would have otherwise never had. You should be able and always enjoy the idea of going home. Going back to your ancestral homeland. But don't let that stop you from looking out to try to find new opportunities elsewhere in the country. Absolutely. I was just recently looking at opportunities in the Atlanta area because I was off a lease. I was looking in Dubuque, of all places, in Iowa, because I was off a lease. I hadn't bought anything yet, and this is a seller's market for labor. So take the opportunity. If you get the chance and you find that job elsewhere in the country, take a look at it. Just see what it'll do for you. I'm not saying to run off and move for it, but I'm saying consider it. Because, yeah, you can always go home. You can always go and enjoy where you grew up, the things that you know. But you can find so much else as you go out and look all across the world as well. So it's a weight thing. It's not the right decision for everybody. But it's a matter of having a look and saying, hey, could this be for me? And that is where I'm going to leave it for that. All right. 10:18. Not the latest we've gone, but we do have to go over and check out our friend Stephen Ignoramus. So let's head out of here for the day. Oh, that's right. I don't have outro music up because I did a restart yesterday. That's why I can't find my outro music. Where is my outro music, by the way? I'm thinking maybe I should have done this before we got started. Where the fuck did they hide that? Is it on this screen? That's where it is. That's why I can't find it. It's on this screen. All right, so thanks everybody for sticking with me on the long Monday stream, and those of you who have come back and gone through the rest of the long Monday stream as well. We'll be back here later on tonight for KTZed Redemption. Come back and join us as we talk, well, about abortion. And that's going to be just about it. I think we're going to try to squeeze in some of the financial topics, some of the things that go on there, but let's be completely realistic. As soon as we're done with the lightning round for today, which I'm going to try to keep short, because of the big topics that we have going on here, it is going to be all abortion all day. So come back and join us with that as we pick the brain of somebody who's much, much, much further to the right than I am about how this goes. I'm actually a little bit curious to see how that conversation goes. I'm looking forward to it, and you should be there too. Otherwise, we'll be back here tomorrow morning with more news and more headlines for more contemporary. And until then, I'm going to sign out of here. Stick around if you're on Twitch. We're going rating on the Daily Ignoramus, and we will see you next time. Signing out for Turns of Page Productions, my name is Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.